Hey everybody, this is Sit Down. I'm DJ Sixsmith. City on a Hill coming to Showtime. Mark O'Brien hanging out. What's up, man?
Hey man, how you doing?
Good to meet you.
Yeah, you too.
Life's been pretty wild for you these past couple months.
Yeah, it's been nuts.
Haven't been home in a while.
I haven't been home in a long time. I live in LA. I've been there in 5 months. We've been shooting City on a Hill. We're actually on the last episode right now. So it's like all coming together. My family was here. My wife is on the show as well. So it's just been a really formative time of life, I think. Yeah.
You have an 18-month-old.
I have an 18-month too, and so it's just like, and she's been on set with us as well. Like she's gotten to know people. Like it's crazy. It's crazy. My daughter at 18 months has more connections in the industry than I did when I was 25.
You're like, come on.
Like I'm jealous of her.
You're so spoiled.
Yeah, like you know what you have. Like she's getting offered roles. Sometimes they're like, do you think your baby wants to play?
You're like, really? Seriously?
I'm like, no, she's not ready.
You're like, nah, maybe she can start walking.
Yeah. And let's see how she does in the callback. Yeah.
Will you speak to the fact that it takes so long to build this thing out? So when you think about where you were in those early stages to where you are now, what were some of the most difficult parts of that journey?
Oh man, it's just such a, well, you know what the difficult part of anything in this business is knowing if it's going to get made and be seen. Yeah. That's really what it is, because even as an actor, like, we're in front of the camera, so we're not doing near the amount of work that everyone else is doing, like just hours-wise. But it's like I started this in December of 2017.
Oh wow.
So it's so crazy. That's when we started the pilot. We finished in January of 2018, and then we started filming a year later. So it's so wild. So much happens along the way, and normally, like for me, it's just like, hope it gets picked up, hope it's a good group of people, it is, hope it's like, you know, the scripts are great and stuff like that, and they are, and you're like, I hope people want to see it. So it's just, there are many stages of it being like a real thing. And you never know what's going to happen. Like sometimes you're cut from a movie. Right. Like, that happens too.
As you found out with Stay Like Sleep.
As I found out, I was like, oh, I'm not in that movie. And that happens, and you have to, as an actor, just be willing to accept it and be like, all right, that stuff happens. It's creative decisions, you know, and that's why with the show, it's like, are the creative decisions going to be something good because I'm a part of it? And when they are, it's such a relief. And we're at that stage right now where I'm very proud of the show. So I just hope that people like it, because you never know what an audience is going to dig. Like, not like Stranger Things, I never heard of a week before it came out. I was like, what's Stranger Things? Like, there's a massive hit. It's a great show. So it's like, you just don't know, so we're kind of at that exciting, little nerve-wracking kind of place, I think. Yeah,
you mentioned a couple different things. There's so many ifs along the way in terms of if it's actually going to work out, right? And then the big if is it going to cut through, right? Because there's so many shows out there. But the good news for you guys, it's like, you got the Boston thing, which people are interested in. You have Kevin Bacon, which it's like, okay, another Kevin Bacon thing. And then Damon and Affleck as exec producers. Like, those are just a few things you have going into this, which are going to intrigue people.
Absolutely, and I think you see that now, like in film and stuff, like everyone wants kind of a reference point. Right. And I think when Boston is such a reference point, like it just is, there's a fascination. And I'm from Canada, so it's not just in the States. It's like there's a fascination everywhere with Boston. It's such an interesting place. It's so diverse. It's like, you know, it's a leader in education and stuff like that. And it has a very interesting kind of like, you know, violent history. So, and it comes from a place of pride. I think there's so much pride, and you get a lot of different people with different viewpoints. Definitely with pride, it's going to clash. So it's actually really interesting. But then when you have, like you said, like Kevin, I'm a big fan of his. You see him, and honestly, and I've talked to many people about this, like about how I've never seen Kevin like this before, and I really mean that. That's not like a pitch. It's like he's fun to watch. Like he's reveling in it. He's having the time of his life, and you can see it. And also like Tom Fontana, our showrunner, like you know, he's very respected as well. So I think I try and be objective and think if I wasn't on it, I'd be jealous of the people in it if I wasn't on it. So I'm like, that's a good sign. So there's some good pedigree there for sure.
Yeah. So you mentioned being from Canada. You entered this world of the Boston scene in the 90s. What was most eye-opening of just about what was going on with the police and just what was going on with the city at that point?
Just the amount of like corruption and the amount
ton of corruption.
Yeah, it's just crazy. You're like, wow, and the way people's lives are, like my character Jimmy Ryan, like he's from Charlestown. Like, you know, I have 2 kids I'm estranged from. I have an ex who I'm estranged from, played by my wife Georgina Riley, and I reference it like you're her. I'm like played by my wife.
Yeah, you Georgina.
Really? It's like, that's not me. Anyway, but so there's a lot going on with this guy, and his substance abuse problem. Right. So it's a great character to play, but he says and does a lot of questionable things. They're not even questionable. They're just like some immoral things there. So for me, the thing that was actually interesting thinking about is that this guy is no one's trying to be evil. Like, this guy is just trying to survive. And this is the way he knows how to survive based on his circumstances in that place and time. And that's not to generalize a whole group of people. Like, not everyone from Charlestown in the 90s.
But just this guy.
But this guy, it's like those circumstances did dictate who he is. So I found that really, really interesting because I didn't grow up. I grew up in a similar, I'm from Newfoundland. It's very like Irish Catholic kind of thing, but not like this.
No, this is to the 10th extreme.
Yeah, this is very like real, but like hardcore. So to see that people actually live that way, it's very interesting.
And it's also interesting what people will do to justify their actions as well, because you could think something's immoral, but it becomes your normal.
Yeah.
You're just like, I'm just gonna roll with this.
Yeah, there's a reason why everyone does everything.
Right.
Like, like someone robs a loaf of bread. they're like, well, I gotta eat.
I'm desperate. Yeah.
And you're like, and it's hard to argue with that, and that's why I think like in Boston at that time and the show was about like a fictionalized account of the Boston Miracle, which was a complete turnaround in the city. And I think it's like economically and just bureaucratically, like in the police force, and things didn't make sense there as well. So that way it's easier to justify your questionable actions because things aren't really like working the way they're supposed to. And I think they explore that really well. And the show does a good job of seeing it from many, many different viewpoints.
I gotcha. So did you get attached to this first, or did your wife get attached to it first?
I did. Okay. I was first. She came in off my coattails. No, I'm joking. No, it was. It
worked out great for you guys.
Yeah, it was unconnected. I was talking to Jennifer Todd, who's one of the producers the other day. She's great, and she was like, "I didn't know you guys were married."
Oh wow.
I was like, "Oh, you didn't know?" And she didn't know. So, and my wife is great on the show. She's phenomenal, and it's just cool to do a different vibe between us.
Yeah, an estranged ex is different than a committed wife in real life.
Yeah, and we did it before. We actually did a movie last year called Goalie, a biopic where I played Terry Sawchuk's famous goaltender, and she played my wife in that too.
Wow.
So we're always playing like versions of ourselves that are not accurate to real life.
Well, that's nice.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's also cool too because these movies and these shows, they take so much time. It's nice to actually be with your wife somewhere.
Yeah, that's the whole thing. Like for me, I love what I do so much, but it is family and friends. Like that is number one, and that's why every job that you do, it has to be something that it's like, where am I shooting? Like, who am I working with? And above all that is the who am I playing and what is the story. But those other things do come into account because you have a life. You have a life. I have to know where I'm going and stuff like that. So when you're like gonna go to New York City, gonna work for Showtime and Tom Fontana and Ben Affleck, Matt Damon, Kevin Bacon, and in Manhattan, I'm like, yeah, that's pretty cool.
You're like, yeah,
I'll take all that.
Whatever comes with this. I've been home for 5 months. I don't care.
Yeah. My wife wasn't even like before she was cast on the show. Georgina wasn't even like, why are you going?
Right.
She was like, oh my God. She's like, that's so cool. So I just feel very fortunate.
Definitely, and I mean, I've grown up watching Damon and Affleck for years. I'm sure you've seen a ton of their stuff.
Oh my God!
So what are some of your favorites of what they've done?
Well, Good Will Hunting changed my life.
Yeah?
Like it probably did. We seem around. We're in the same age group, I think. So yeah. I miss those movies. I miss those
great movies.
Like, so I just saw the trailer for Ford versus Ferrari, and I'm like,
that
I'm so excited. I'm like, a real movie.
Yeah.
Like, and back in the day, that would have been like a summer blockbuster. And now it's just we're just starved for real movies. And I do think that Damon and Affleck, they still make those. They still try and make real movies. I know Ben Affleck did Batman and stuff, but he's still doing other interesting stuff along the way.
Totally.
And it's like. And not that that's not interesting, but I mean like real human stuff, and I miss those movies. So for me, Good Will Hunting was just absolutely massive. And then like, the Bourne movies and Departed.
The Departed.
And I love Hollywoodland, actually. I thought Affleck was really good in Hollywoodland.
I haven't seen that one.
Oh man, it's really good.
I gotta check that one out.
It's kind of an under the radar movie. It's very, very good. I've been a big fan of theirs for years, everything they've done. But I mean, Good Will Hunting is...
I mean, those guys get Boston, so...
Yeah, exactly, and Chuck McClane, who created the show. I mean, this guy is
What's his story?
He's a very interesting guy. He pulls no punches and takes no prisoners. I hope he's watching this. He will watch this. He's the greatest guy in the world. He's very, very funny. But this guy knows Boston. He's from Boston. He knows it inside and out.
That's important for a show like this.
Yeah, and you wouldn't think it to look at him. He's just a tough dude. And when I first met him, I was like, man, you know a lot of this stuff. And he was like, I'm a nerd. And I was just like, oh, like, so when you know you're working for someone who's like, no, this happened at this time, and this is exactly what happened there and then. And they're actually a screenwriter first.
Right.
But they're a historian second. So it works really well. So
good combination.
Yeah, so Chuck is like someone we're in very good hands with. And him working with Tom Fontana is a really good mix.
That's awesome. So I feel like every part kind of pushes you and challenges you in a different way. When you think about this journey, this 2-year journey, basically. Yeah. How have you been pushed as an actor, and what have you learned about yourself?
That's a good question, man. It's been crazy. This role is what everyone would look for in a role. Every actor would look for. It's pushed me. I mean, there's a lot of. I don't have any scenes like, you know, sitting in the office, like going over a file.
No, not
like,
that type of
guy. There's nothing like that. Like, it's funny. I was on *Halt and Catch Fire*, and I played a very straight-laced, kind of smart, almost bordering on arrogant kind of character who I really liked and was sort of similar to me in a way, and he was very opinionated and stuff. And then I think of this character, I'm like, this is completely different. And then I'm in a movie called *Ready or Not* coming out August 23rd, and it's like a very like straight man kind of thing who's in an emotional scenario, but he has to deal with it, and it's a really cool movie. But this is like the exact opposite. So it's the opposite of those kind of guys who are put together. Because so every scene has an emotional, it's not even like this, it's like that. And I think when your emotions are all over the place and they're that like bubbling on the surface, then it can just go in any direction. And what I think is cool about the character, for me learning about, like, because you know, you're always learning as an actor, I'm just going to keep learning and learning and learning, is that there's not necessarily always an easy route to anything. Because every movie is like someone wants something and then they're trying to get it, and they're going to have obstacles along the way. So it's never like easy. But sometimes it's all over the place because this character is just trying to survive in every scene. He's really literally just trying to survive. So to be that on the edge in every single scene is actually, it's a challenge, and you learn things about yourself and how far you can go and how far you shouldn't go and stuff like that. But in a way, it's more freeing. Because you can just be, as opposed to, like, you know, having to rein everything in.
Right, and play it one specific way.
Exactly, yeah, which, like, you know, I've done a lot of that. Every actor has, like, you know,
specific character role.
Yeah, and this is
like
exactly what they want, and this is how they're going to get it. And you need that, to be honest. You need that in every story. But this character is just not quite like that. So I've learned a lot about myself, and I hope it works. I don't know, I hope it works. I like the show. It's hard to tell, like, you know, your own worst critic, but I definitely learned a lot.
That's awesome. Yeah. So you mentioned the hockey movie before.
Oh yeah.
What was it like preparing for that and doing that?
That was so cool because I'm a massive hockey fan.
Right, Canada.
Yeah, I'm from Canada. I have to.
You have to be.
Yeah, I was born and they put a hockey stick in me.
Who's your squad? Are you a Canadiens fan? Or are you...
Oh, Canadiens fan, massive. Okay. Massive Montreal Canadiens fan. Like, diehard. Like, I know their payroll right now.
You're all in
like,
on
I'm
that.
like, they're at 71 mil, what are they going to do?
That's like me with the NBA. Like, that's my thing. Hockey.
Oh, Raptors. I'm with Raptors right now.
Looking pretty good right now.
Looking really good. Thank you, KD.
Yeah,
Thank you, KD.
Clay, KD.
Oh, man, like, the Raptors, like, they're deep, man. Kawhi, we just want him to stay. Now we're already thinking towards next season. Is he going to stay?
It's been such a magical year.
Oh my God, it's been amazing to watch. And like just everyone, like, you know, Danny Green and
Kyle Lowry
and Van Fleet. Van Fleet's been unbelievable. So, but I'm a hockey fan kind of first.
Right.
So playing Terry Sawchuk was a huge, like, I knew everything about him growing up. And he was a very kind of introverted character who, actually very different to Jimmy Ryan as well, but in another way, where it's like all of his emotions were confused, very, very confused, and he really kept it all in. For the hockey stuff, it wasn't too bad because I play, so it's kind of like if you play guitar, you end up playing drums sometimes.
Sure.
Like, so I end up playing a net sometimes.
Yeah,
like, I naturally played goal sometimes. So, but you have to learn, like, his way and everything like that. So it was a massive kind of physical challenge. And to be all day, every day, and I had scarring, you know, 4 different stages of scarring, so it's like, we're going to do stage 4, then stage 2, so I don't think I, like, sat down and just chilled throughout that whole movie. I was like, I'm so tired.
Wow.
But that's the best. That's the good stuff, right?
That's definitely a good thing.
Yeah, it was cool. Actually, it's coming out in the fall in the States.
Okay.
And in Canada, I think it's like on iTunes and demand and everything on June 11th, so it's actually really soon.
Yeah, because I hadn't heard about that one. I'm like,
yeah,
that sounds
it was
really
released in Canada first and then States later, yeah.
That would be cool.
Yeah.
So So when you think about other movies or parts you've done in your career, who are people that you've really learned the most from, or just people you've enjoyed working with throughout this whole thing?
Oh, cool. There's a long list.
There are.
I did a movie with Hugh Jackman last year called The Front Runner.
That's right.
Yeah, which I'm really, really proud of that movie. I'm a big fan of Jason Reitman. So Jason Reitman's on that list. Hugh Jackman is the biggest gentleman, #1 on a call sheet, treats everyone the same way, makes a conscious effort to be a leader. I learned more from Hugh Jackman than I could learn from anyone. Then there's other people like Mads Mikkelsen. I worked on Hannibal. I just thought he was a great leader, wonderful guy. Denis Villeneuve, Billy Ray, I did a show with him. Chris Rogers and Chris Cantwell from *Halt and Catch Fire*. And just, there's so many people along the way. Jonathan Tucker right now, the way he just watching him and his performance on City on a Hill is my brother. We have so many scenes together. I really admire his work ethic. And there's just so many people. I remember, but you learn like different things. Like when I did Hannibal, for example, I remember I did a scene in Lawrence Fishburne. I finished the scene, he came over and shook my hand and said, "That was a great job."
Oh, wow.
Now that felt really cool. Because I was like, "Oh, Lawrence Fishburne, oh my God, that was so cool." Yeah. But what I actually learned was like, he didn't need to do it. And I like it with people in this industry. It's such a cutthroat industry. I like it when people go out of their way to do something. Like, it's just an email. It's just a quick little thing that can give someone a huge boost. And at that time, I needed that boost. And I remember Lawrence Fishburne doing it. He just didn't need to. And he wasn't like placating me or anything. Like, he came over just to be nice.
Oh, it's just legit. And that's like an OG in the industry.
Yeah,
and seeing a young dude like you that's just working
hard.
And
I need it. I still think about it and feel good. And it's like, so it's little things like that you pick up along the way, or watching Kelsey Grammer work and like just how easy he makes it look. But Kelsey Grammer is one of the few people I've been in the scene. I've been like, whoa, he's really good. Oh, right, my line.
Yeah, we get back to it.
Yeah.
But if he mesmerizes you like that in the scene, imagine when people watch that.
Yeah, exactly. You're like, wow, like, yeah, because I was there and I'm like, I forgot.
Well, speaking of The Front Runner, you think about that story, and at that time, it was such a controversial thing. Whereas, like, politicians now, it's just kind of par for the course.
Well, that's the thing, and to be honest, to be completely open about it, I felt like some of the critical reaction, I hate to say this, but didn't quite get it.
Yeah, what happened with that movie?
Because
I feel like
it was so good.
Yeah.
And everyone who sees it's like, man, that movie was great, and it's one of the things I'm most proud of in my whole career, my whole life. I just thought it was such a cool thing to be a part of, talk about points of view.
Yeah.
And what I saw a lot of in reviews, and I don't read a lot of them, but when you're in something, you can't help but catch wind of it. A lot of it was, oh, we're seeing another guy in power doing something he shouldn't do and stuff like that. And I know, like, what's happening right now is like necessary, like, you know, with like, you know, Me Too movement and all that kind of stuff. But I felt like the reviews with that movie got jumbled in with something else. When Jason, I think, was actually trying to make a point of like, look at how different it is then as compared to now. And the guy's talking about grabbing, blah, 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 and he gets in office, and this other guy is like may or may not have had a scandal,
and his whole political career is over. Yeah.
And he was the guy.
Right.
And it's just like, so it's not even saying that one's wrong or right. I mean, it seems kind of obvious, but it's still just being like, here's an analysis of it. Isn't this crazy?
Yeah, I think from a critical standpoint, that must have been one of the more surprising reactions to something that you had done.
Yeah, and I just think that Jason and the writers, Jay Carson and Matt Bai, and the producers, like, I think they just nailed it. And I think that movie is going to stand the test of time very well.
Yeah, I think you give it a couple years, you know, you go 5 years down the road and you'd be like, all right, you know what, this was actually a really good movie.
Yeah,
you know?
I think so, and I think the performances, and like seeing it from different points of view, because then you see why, instead of just like, you know, the facts someone did something, you see why they did it, and how that affects so many different people.
Absolutely.
So I think it was great, but I also get that, you know, it's a touchy time right now.
Sure.
It's a very divisive time, so I also like, I'm not saying that to be safe, but anyone who wrote a review like that, I get it, because we're so like in it right now.
Right.
So, you know, that happens.
Yeah, and it just, you never know how things are going to cut through. Even like Adam McKay's movie on Dick Cheney, it's, you know, it's like, it's hard to get people to come, especially if there's like a controversial political element to it. You know?
And he nailed it, but he had such a different tone and so flashy. And I think for The Big Short, people were excited to see his next thing, so it helped a bit. I loved Vice.
Yeah.
I thought Vice was incredible. Like Sam Rockwell, oh my God. I mean, Christian Bale and Amy Adams too, but just every moment you're like, wow, how? He's so good.
Yeah, you go back to some of these movies, and you mentioned Ford vs. Ferrari when you see Bale with that. Like going back to like The Fighter, Bale and The Fighter, I'm just like, I'm not even a Boston guy, and I'm watching these Boston movies, like The Departed, The Fighter,
They're so good.
Gone Baby Gone.
I remember watching The Fighter, and I watched that trailer, and I was like, Christian Bale. I was a huge fan of his since even Shaft. I thought he was really good. As a kid, I was like, that guy's really good. And then And then, of course, American Psycho.
American Psycho, yeah.
And then it was, there was another big one, I think, like Reign of Fire, and he did, and The Machinist.
Yeah, yeah.
And then the Batman stuff. But when I saw the trailer for The Fighter, I remember like making people watch it. I was like, you guys see this trailer? Look how good this guy is. And it's funny because when I got City on a Hill, when I first read the script, I was like, he seems like someone to be friends. He'd be in that group of friends.
Those misfits.
Like it's in that vibe. And I was like, oh, that's so cool. It's like sort of that world. There's something about Boston. Yeah, there's and it's hard for me to even pinpoint it. I think it's because there's so much history there, and there's so much pride, and there's so many different walks of life that it's created just a fascination. And the show really does do that from so many different viewpoints of people in their lives and where they are and how they interconnect. And it does remind me of certain shows like Homicide: Life on the Street and The Wire and shows like that, where it's like kind of all-encompassing.
Definitely. So when people check it out on Showtime, what are the big takeaways you want them to have when they tune in?
I think it's definitely a very exciting show. I think what you see in the marketing of the show is like, this is an intense drama with action and stuff, and it really is. I mean, that's what it is. I think what people are going to get is something that's very, very intellectual, but also entertaining. And that's, as a film watcher, that's all I want to see. And like I remember when I worked with Denis Villeneuve, I was like, he's one of the best at that. You sit into something like Sicario, a drug movie, or you sit into something that you think you're going to know, or Arrival, and then it's something a little bit different or challenges you a little bit more. And I think City on a Hill challenges the viewer, but leaves you wanting to know more because there's some really juicy twists in there too. So it's just good television and a story well told.
Looking forward to it.
Yeah.
Mark,
thanks man. Yeah, nice meeting you, man.
Why don't you tell everybody when and where they can check it out?
Am I going right here?
You're going to go straight forward right here.
Okay, you can check out City on a Hill Sundays on Showtime starting June 16th.
All right, there you have it. That's Mark. I'm DJ. We'll see you next time here on The Sit Down.